play again. Subscribers, you know it's short and sweet, not 3 hours long, just a quick beat. Lean can play it for a short break. No long loops giving you a headache. Sit back, relax, or maybe don't. It's your choice, it's all yours to own. No replay, need to listen now. Just a quick zoom to lift your brow. This song will end, you can be sure. No endless pain, just vibes so pure. No place called home, just a brief stay. Catchy tunes to brighten your day. Short and simple, that's our style. Hope it brings you a brief smile. It won't take you long to feel the beat. No dragging time, it's light and sweet. Leany knows this one's a breeze. Short enough to put you at ease. No replay, need to listen now. Just a quick zoom to lift your brow. This song will end, you can be sure. No endless pain, just vibes so pure. Won't take you long to feel the beat. No dragging time, it's light and sweet. Leany knows this one's a breeze. Short enough to put you at ease. No replay, need to listen now. Just a quick zoom to lift your brow. This song will end, you can be sure. No endless pain, just vibes so pure.
Out from the island they come, lost but not alone. Leany gives them a place, a new island they call home. Under the tropical sun, stories begin to flow. Contestants old and brave find a new kind of glow. According to Leany, she's got a plan. Rescue the fallen with a wave of her hand. According to Leany, sun-kissed and free, a home for the broken, out on the sea. Cameras have gone away, but new lights start to shine. In her presence they stay, in this new life they find. According to Leany, she's got a plan. Rescue the fallen with a wave of her hand. According to Leany, sun-kissed and free, a home for the broken, out on the sea. Cameras have gone away, but new lights start to shine. In her presence they stay, in this new life they find. According to Leany, she's got a plan. Rescue the fallen with a wave of her hand. According to Leany, sun-kissed and free, a home for the broken,
Hi everyone. Sorry I'm late and as usual I'm not a bit organised. I had it all planned as well in my head what I was going to do, but you know what? You know me, nothing ever goes to plan. So can you all hear me? We'll start there, eh? Making sure you can all hear me. Let me know if you can hear me, please. Can everyone hear me okay? Hello, hello, can you hear me? Yeah, all good. Thank God for that. Okay. So let me put my phone here. So I'm not going to see chat, obviously, because I'm reading. Sorry, I've just hit my phone there, Liz. Um, I hacked the channel RC. I hacked it. Well, I don't know whether. Well, you've obviously all read the the thumbnail. What this is about. So let me just say hello to everyone first, and then I'll tell you what's going on. So I anointed praise. It's not Lenny, it's Maggie. Thanks for coming in if you're still there, girl, or if you're there or you've gone or whatever. Thanks anyway. Lizzo, I love Barbara Smith, Lunch Lady, Eric, Eric Freshcorn, Bless Girl Charisse, RC, and I think that's it. Oh, Pink Fan, hiya Pink. Pink Fan's here. Let's see who else. Is anyone else? Did anyone else? Don't want to forget anyone. Freeside, hiya Freeside. Good to see you all and thanks for coming in. Okay, so I did mention this, was it yesterday or the day before? Just saying, I don't know whether anyone's interested in the Madeline McCann story. It's a really sad story. Oh, it's a little girl who went missing while on holiday with her parents and the mum's friends and kids. The book was written in 2011 by Maddie's mum, Kate McCann. So it's her story. I hope you can't hear my dog snoring in the background. Um, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So I could go straight into it and start from the holiday, but I'm thinking it's best to start at the beginning. So it gives you an insight into Madeline's parents and her brothers and sisters, so you get the full story. So, okay, so if you want to grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, a beer, whatever, go now, or forever hold your peace. Forever hold your peace. I've just got mine. I've just made a cup of tea, so I'm all ready to go. Okay, let's go. So I should give it a 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so to see if anybody else comes in, or should I just get into it? Sorry, Maggie, it says according to Leonie. Where? Well, it is a channel, isn't it? But it did say Maggie. It did say read to you by Maggie. I didn't do that at first, but I edited it, so it said read by Maggie. So you all knew what you were getting into. Well, this is a nice surprise, Maggie. Well, thank you, Pink. I'm glad it's a nice surprise for you, love. I'm glad. Got a bit of a headache, girls. Got a bit of a headache. You know what? So, is anyone up on this story of Madeleine McCann? So this book was written, as I say, in 2011. It was the first book that was written, and she wrote it because she wanted to get her truth out there and, to give it her side of the story and how it is for them. So we all know where we are with the story, which is really sad because she's never been found, and there's been so many theories, speculations going around as to what happened to her. And the last thing that was on the news that came out that there was not a very nice man who was possibly involved with her disappearance. So they do think she's deceased, and oh god, it's just awful. But let's get into it anyway. Thanks, Liz. Thanks for that, love. So yeah, so you can all hear me, so let's go. So, Madeline, our daughter's disappearance and the continuing search for her, Kate McCann. To our three beautiful children, Madeline, Sean, and Amelia, or is that Amelie? Emily? Oh, I think it's Amelie. Is that Emily? Spelt differently. Is me getting the name wrong straight away. Anyway, so it says, thank you for enriching our lives and making us very proud and happy parents. So contents. 1. Jerry. Now, Jerry is Madeline's dad. So the decision to publish the book has been very difficult and taken with heavy hearts. Before making up our minds to tell a story, my husband Jerry and I have had to give very careful consideration to a number of issues, not least its impact on the lives of our three children. My reason for writing it is simple: to give an account of the truth. It has always been my intention to set down a complete record of what happened to our family for our children, Madeline, Sean, Emily, so that when they are ready, the facts will be there for them to read. I wanted to make sure they would always have access to a written chronicle of what really happened, no matter how many years have passed. They have always been through too much. They have already been through too much, and there will be further challenges ahead. Understanding our ordeal will give them the best chance of dealing with whatever life throws at them. Choosing to share this personal account with the world has been much harder. Of course, we want the truth to be told. For the past 4 years, it has been excruciating to stand by as all kinds of tales have circulated about Madeline's disappearance and about Jerry, me, and our family. The press have published a mountain of stories, often without knowing and perhaps caring whether or not there was any substance to them, causing great distress to our family, and more importantly, hindering the search for Madeline. Others have seized the opportunity to profit from our agony by writing books about our daughter, several of them claiming to reveal what really happened, which is extraordinary, given the only person who knows this is the person who abducted her on the 3rd of May 2007. Many of these authors have no first-hand knowledge of the case and have based their theories on the half-truths, speculation and full-blown lies appearing in the media and on the internet. Okay, so let me just stop there. Can everybody hear me okay? Thanks, Al. You put me in your pocket then, lunch lady. Go on. I'm used to being in your pocket. So, okay, is everything alright? I've got thumbs up. Okay, I'll carry on. Dealing with Madeline's disappearance has been almost all-consuming, leaving us little time or strength to address these further crimes against our family. The appalling loss of our daughter has been too much to bear. Everything else, however huge, has had to take second place. There is only so much human beings can stand at once. It doesn't mean the injustices hurt any less. On the whole, Jerry and I have managed to dig deep and remain focused, although the temptation to shout the truth from the rooftops has always been there. There have been many times when I have struggled to keep myself together and to understand how such injustices have been allowed to go unchallenged over and over again. I have had to keep saying to myself, I know the truth, we know the truth, and God knows the truth, and one day the truth will out. Yet publishing the truth is fraught with risks for our family. It lays upon to more criticism for a start. We have discovered that there are those in society who will always criticise. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, or what you're doing, or what way you're doing it. We don't know what motives these people, although I have a few theories. In the early months, I found such censor incredibly upsetting and sometimes overwhelming. Our beloved daughter has been stolen from us. We were suffering terribly, and I could not begin to comprehend why anyone who would want to add to that pain. As time went on, I was able to shoulder it a little better, either by trying to understand why people did it, unfair as it was, or by simply trying to ignore it. The detractors didn't care about Madeline, so why torture myself by even listening to them? We've met many wise people along the way who have stressed the importance of not being derailed by those with their own agenda. It has proved to be good advice. We realise that Madeline's abduction has been very hard for every parent to bear. It has brought home to everyone how vulnerable our children are and how fragile our lives. I have come to understand that some of these critics have been acting out of self-preservation. Holding us culpable in some way makes them feel their own children are safer. Who knows how we might have reacted if this has happened to another family and we're being the ones watching from the sidelines. Whatever lies at the root of these negative reactions, they have never stopped us doing what we think is best for Madeline, and they won't do so now. As long as we are acting in her interest, we will withstand whatever slings and arrows we must face. The sacrifice of our privacy has been another concern. Given the choice, we will prefer to try to sink back into the anonymity we took for granted before the 3rd of May 2007. But our anonymity has gone anyway, and we constantly have to weigh our desire for privacy against the need to keep our search for Madeline in the public eye. I have wondered whether we haven't already given too much of ourselves and our family to the world. It is not something which we are comfortable, but often the considerations involved such decisions seemed I can't even say the word. Writing their memoir has entailed recording some very personal, intimate and emotional aspects of our lives. Sharing these with strangers does not come easy to me, but if I hadn't done, I would not have felt the book gave a full picture, as it is possible for me to give. As with every action we have taken over the last 4 years, it ultimately boils down to whether what we are doing could help us find Madeline. When the answer to that question is yes, or even possibly, our family can cope with anything. My biggest worry has undoubtedly been invading the privacy of our children. My account obviously exposes them to a certain extent, as well as Jay and myself. Later in their lives, they may feel I have made public information they would have preferred had been kept private. My instinct tells me, however, that it will be far more important to Sean and Emily to know that their mum and dad have left no stone unturned in their efforts to find their big sister. And if that has included publishing a book, I'm sure they will understand and accept that necessity. And I have no doubt that Madeline too will feel the same way. What tipped the balance in our decision is the continuing need to fund the search for Madeline. While she remains missing, the onus is on us to keep looking, since there is no longer any law enforcement agency at all actively inquiring into her disappearance. Investigations and campaigns cost money, which is being raised by us. It is still a struggle for me to see beyond tomorrow. Every day I wake up hoping this will be the day we find Madeline. But having lived through 4 years, 4 painful years without my dear daughter, I have reluctantly been forced to acknowledge that our quest could take weeks, months, or yet more years. And the reality is we have to ensure we have adequate funding for the long term. Every penny we raise through the sales of this book will be spent on our search for Madeleine. Nothing is more important to us than finding our little girl. We are also hopeful that this book may help the investigation in other ways. Perhaps it might prompt someone who has relevant information, maybe without even knowing, to come forward and share it with our team. Somebody holds that key piece of jigsaw indirectly. It may boost our search simply by enlightening those who, for whatever reason, believe Madeline is no longer alive, or that there is nothing else they can do to find her. We trust it will put to rest some of the myths that have sprung up around her abduction, and we will become clear in the following pages. While we still do not know what happened to Madeline, there remains no evidence whatsoever to suggest that she has come to serious harm. Although writing this book has been a time-consuming and at times heartbreaking experience, it has been made a little easier by the fact that I have kept a daily journal since towards the end of May 2007. This is something that would not have occurred to me. It was suggested by a man I met in the course of the innumerable meetings Jerry and I had that month with the experts, helping us to negotiate the emotional and practical minefield in which we found ourselves. I am forever in his debt for his advice. Initially, it seemed a good way of keeping a record for Madeline of what happened in the days she was away from us. But writing everything down turned out to be immensely therapeutic for me. It provided me with a release valve for my thoughts and extreme feelings. It was a place where I could shout what I was unable to shout from the rooftops, and it gave me a means of communicating with Madeline. My journal was also to prove invaluable when Jerry and I later felt it necessary to quash claims that made about where we were and what we were doing at various times. Now it has been pressed into service once more as the basis for more of this book. It has enabled me to recall the clarity my innermost reflections of periods when my whole life was clouded by despair, and it is the reason why I have been able, for 4 years down the line, to be so precise about the timings of particular events. What follows is an intensely personal account, and I make no apology for that. Since the 3rd of May 2007, there has been undoubtedly much going on behind the scenes we haven't known about and perhaps never will. I have been as open as possible about everyone involved in the story, as our investigation is still ongoing, and for legal reasons, some opinions or episodes cannot be shared. Cannot be shared until, let me turn the page, Madeline is found. I hope readers will understand this and not judge this record harshly because of it. Thank you for buying and reading this book. In doing so, you are supporting the search for our daughter. So I'm just going to come up for here and have a little drink. I've got fireworks going off in the background, and I've got Jessie shaking like a leaf. Come here. Come on. Hurry up. Come here, Jess. It's okay. Come on. Are you coming? No, she won't come to me. I don't know whether you can hear them. Just having a drink. Whew. It's hard work this reading, isn't it? Do you reckon, Lisa? I'm dry as a bone. Can you hear them fireworks going off? There's just no need for them. Dog is in bits. Come here. Come on, it's okay. It's okay. Come on. Oh. Phew. Okay, so I'll get back to it. Thanks for anyone who's new and come in. Meaning anyone who's come in since I've said hello. Hello to all. I'm going to carry on. Thanks, Pink. Before the 3rd of May 2007, I was Kate Healy. And by the way, she lived in Liverpool. She went to a school with my friend. I think she was from Huyton in Liverpool, but I'm not too sure. We'll find out now. So before the 3rd of May 2007, I was Kate Healy, a GP married to a consultant cardiologist and the mother of 3 children. We were a perfectly ordinary family, boring even. Since settling down to bring up our long-born babies, Jerry and I had become such strangers to the fast lane that we were often the butt of good-natured teasing from our friends. We'd give anything to have that boring life back now. It began for me in Liverpool, where I was born, in 1968, on the first day of an 11-week bus strike, according to my mum. My parents too were Liverpool born and bred, though my dad's family were originally from Ireland, and my mum's mum was from County Durham. My dad, Brian Healy, was a joiner and saved time initially at Camberlake Shipbuilders. My mum, Susan, trained as a teacher when I was small, which can't have been an easy juggling act, but eventually ending up working for the civil service. I was an only child, which prompts many people to assume, quite wrongly, that I must have grown up either spoiled or introverted or both. I certainly never went without food or clothes or love, but I was not spoiled in material terms, and if I was a little shy, I don't remember ever being lonely. Until I was nearly 5, home was a cul-de-sac in Huyton, in the east of the city. It is also home to several big families, and my earliest memories are of fun-filled days playing outside with the neighbours' kids after we left Huyton. No, with the neighbours' kids. After we left Huyton, I returned often to join my friends for games of Kirby and Kick the Can in the street. I'm sure the residents didn't enjoy that as much as we did, and if there is anyone out there who still remembers it less than fondly, I apologise, better late than never. A couple of years after my maternal grandmother died, still only in her 50s, we moved in with my granddad in Anfield. Now retired, he had been chief clerk for a firm importing nuts and dried fruits. He had excellent accounting skills, but like many men of his generation, he hadn't a clue about housework or cooking, and he was struggling with my nana. Yet I remember him always being very smartly turned out, appearing in shirt and tie and waistcoat for church every day. I went regularly too. I was baptised and brought up in the Roman Catholic faith. I attended Catholic schools and went to Mass on Sundays. It was expected of me. It was what I was used to, and I didn't question it. So my Catholicism and my belief in God were part of the foundations of my life, and I didn't question them either, or at least not to any great extent. There were momentary blips when I wrestled with life's big issues quietly in my mind. God, the universe, my own existence, but for the most part, I was satisfied with what I come to believe and what I've been told by the people who mattered to me. I might not have acknowledged my faith on a daily basis, and there were certainly times when church took a back seat, especially in my university days, but it was always there in the background, a source of comfort, refuge, and support. Perhaps because I didn't have brothers or sisters, I have always been very close to my cousins, and I have plenty of mates, many of whom remain dear to me to this day. One of them, Lydia, a neighbour in Huyton, has known me since I was born. Our mothers were friends then and are still now. As well as being shy, I was quite sensitive, which aren't qualities to be envied, as I discovered, but I loved company and wasn't one to sit around quietly on my own. Michelle and Nikki have been my friends since primary school. I met Michelle on our first day at All Saints in Anfield, and we were inseparable from that moment onwards. At that time, my parents were planning a family trip to Canada to visit Auntie Nora, my dad's sister, who had emigrated there, and I was very excited about it. Michelle must have been an immediate hit with me because I asked her on that first day at school if she'd like to come with us. Naturally, she said yes, and she was rather upset when she got home and her mum put paid to that idea. Michelle and I both passed the 11 plus and went on together to Everton Valley, Notre Dame Collegiate School, followed by the next year by her sister Lynn, who was 10 months younger. They came from a big Catholic family, and I spent every Tuesday evening at their house. They came to mine every Friday. In the holidays, we were rarely apart. I even used to go to the Liverpool FC parties in their street. Well, this was the 1970s, which, given that the Healy's were dyed in the wool blues, speaks volumes for my love for Michelle. Nikki was another All Saints pupil, although our educational paths diverged when I went on to Evan Valley. She lived very close to me, and we remained firm friends. If you asked my mum for her abiding memory of Nikki when we were kids, she'd instantly say, pickled onion crisps. We used to have midnight feasts when Nikki stayed overnight and leave the evidence under the bed. They didn't all involve pickled onion crisps, but evidently it is that unmistakable aroma that sticks in my mum's mind from those innocent days. Nikki has always been happy-go-lucky and full of energy. She was a great singer and dancer. She grew up to become a fitness instructor, and we spent many days together making up little dance routines in the 70s to all the disco hits like Back at us yesterday, I can bookie. I'd like to say we were good, but I have a feeling one of us was. She was a real tonic, Nick. She still is. At school, I was hard-working and conscientious and did well academically. I think the fact that I was sporty too and always picked for the school team. I was netball captain for a while and played rounders in the summer was what saved me from being branded a swot. At that stage, I didn't have a particular career in mind. My decision to offer a degree in medicine emerged gradually from the choices I made after my O levels, so it wasn't a lifelong vocation. In my early teens, I wanted to become a hematologist and find a cure for leukemia. God knows where that come from or how I even had a clue what a hematologist was. I'd also toyed with the idea of training as a vet. When choosing my A-level subjects, I wasn't sure initially whether to go with three sciences or maths, economics, French, and then, when looking ahead to university, whether to aim for medicine or engineering. At both crossroads, I could have gone either way. Although I wanted a fulfilling and worthwhile career, I have never been overly ambitious, except in one respect. It was no secret to anyone who knew me that my overriding goal in life was to be a mother, and preferably a mother to many. I certainly wasn't one of those girls who prepared to devote everything I had to climbing the pinnacle of my profession if it meant sacrificing relationships and babies along the way. That might be viewed as lame by some, though not, I suspect, by most mothers. When I graduated from Dundee University in 1992, my entry into the university yearbook concluded with the line prognosis, mathematician, and mother of six. I achieved neither of these predictions, but I was extremely happy and proud to end up with the best prize imaginable, my three beautiful children. Dundee University might seem a surprising choice for a Scouse girl with no particular Scottish connections, but back then it was almost a rite of passage for students from English schools to choose a university a decent distance from home, and Dundee came into the equation when it was recommended to me by a good friend who knew somebody studying there. I went up to have a look at the university and was shown around by a very amiable bunch of four-year students. It was Guy Fawkes night. I remember they were all going to a party afterwards and they invited me to go with them. There were so many students' parties and other social events happening over the next few days that I wound up staying there rather longer than planned. I had a ball and was made to feel really welcome. So Dundee it was for me. The social scene lived up to its initial promise. Partying is practically obligatory. I can never say words right, guys, sorry. For medical students, after all, and I've made lots of friends. I had a fantastic time at university and did my best to achieve a balance between work and play. Not always successfully. I kept myself fit by playing for the university netball team. After qualifying in 92, the next step was to complete two 6-month stints as a junior house officer, one in general medicine and one in general surgery or orthopaedics. I opted for the latter. On finishing my first 6 months post at King's Cross Hospital in Dundee, I felt I was ready for a change of scene. At the bright lights of the big city, Glasgow beckoned. It was in Glasgow in 1993 that I remember first meeting Jerry McCann. He says that we actually met in 92 when we were both interviewed for the same job that neither of us got. But I have no recollection of that. Sorry, Jer. He had qualified in medicine in the same year as me from Glasgow Uni. Scotland has a much stronger tradition of students going to local universities. Although we didn't work together early in our careers, we moved into the same circles and our paths often crossed in the course of many social events. So beloved of juniors doctors, including the infamous doctors and nurses, pay night extravaganza at Cleopatra's nightclub, affectionately known as Classy Pat's. Jerry was good looking, confident and outgoing. He has always had a reputation as a bit of a lad, but as I got to know him, I discovered a natural warmth and honesty, especially when he talked about his family. That revealed an endearing sweetness and vulnerability beneath the potentially intimidating facade. We had quite a lot in common apart from our profession. We both came from ordinary working class Catholic families with Irish roots. Like me, Jerry had attended Catholic schools and gone to Mass on Sundays. Of course, when we first met, we didn't know this about each other, and it wouldn't have entered either of our heads to ask. Through our names, we would have been a strong clue if we'd thought about it, and Jerry's dad was a joiner like mine. His mum Eileen had been born in Glasgow to Irish parents. She had been sent to live with her grandmother in Donegal shortly after the outbreak of the Second World War, returning to Glasgow when it was over. Jerry's father, Johnny, was from St Johnston in County Donegal, but was just over the border from Northern Ireland. Johnny had had a tough start in life. He'd lost his mother, his elder brother, and his father before he was 16. After spending some time with an uncle in Sligo, Johnny found himself responsible for his father's pub and a small brother. Having been forced to give up his own education at a Jesuit college, Johnny wanted better for his own children and insisted that they all worked hard to gain the grades to get to university. Unlike my own family, Jerry's was large and boisterous. Born in the same year as I was, 68, he was the youngest of Johnny and Eileen's 5 children. He had an elder brother, also Johnny, and there are 3 sisters in between them, Tricia, Jack and Phil. From Jerry's stories, it sounds as if it was fun, loud and colourful. It was a fun, loud and colourful household, quite mad at times. It must have been hard too. 7 people living in one bedroom in a Glasgow tenement, and that was without the occasional lodger with nowhere else to go who'd been offered a berth on the floor. Johnny Senior was away working for long periods, and Eileen also worked intermittently as a shop assistant and later as a cleaner. So wee Jerry was often entrusted to care of his elder siblings, but life in a tenement full of Catholic families and hordes of all other kids had more advantages than disadvantages. Everyone was in the same boat, so to the McCann children and those of their neighbours, this was perfectly normal and nobody felt deprived. Like me, Jerry did well academically in school. By the time he came along, the family work ethic was well established. His goals had been set for him, and he followed into the high achieving footsteps of his brother and sisters, competing with them and always determined to do better. Shy and Jerry are words that would never occur in the same sentence. All the McCann children are very sociable and self-assured, and McCann confidence is one of a kind that would make you a fortune if you could bottle it and sell it. My dad often cheekily remarks that they were born with silver microphones in their mouths. Jerry was good at sport too, and being Jerry, he was hugely competitive. Middle distance running was his forte, and 17 he was the fastest in Scotland in his age group, over 800 metres. At Glasgow University, he ran with the Hares and the Hounds Club, whose team strip was a hideous bright yellow, fine for sports kit, but he was so attached to his running shirt that he insisted on wearing it out socially as well. You could see him coming from a mile away. To me, the contrasting strands of Jerry's personality, the confidence and the ebullience interwoven with that honesty and openness combined to produce a very engaging and attractive man. He was a lot of fun on one hand and kind and serious and loving on the other, and yet I kept my distance and tried to play it cool. It was his Jack the Lad image that held me back. I suppose I was hesitant to plunge into a relationship in which I might end up getting hurt, and I guess there was an element of pride in it too. I didn't want to be just one of the succession of girlfriends. It all seems a bit silly now, after Jerry's wonderful qualities have been confirmed to me so many times over the years. I'm not suggesting his reputation is a ladies' man. It was completely without foundation. It wasn't, but there is no doubt that it was unfairly exaggerated, as these things often are, and that I paid too much attention to gossip. And believe me, I know how damaging that can be. As things turned out, it took both of us moving to the other side of the world to finally bring us together as a couple. I was keen to travel, and I knew if there was going to be anything more than a pipe dream, I needed to do it sooner rather than later. The further my career progressed, the more committed I was likely to become at work, and the more difficult it would be to break away. After completing my house jobs, as they were known then, basically a doctor's first year post qualification, I found myself embarking on a career in obstetrics and gynecology. While that hadn't been my intention, I planned simply to go gain the experience I needed for general practice. I really enjoyed O&G looking back. I have to admit that the departmental social scene was great too, as this might well have added to its appeal, but it was an incredibly busy and competitive area with many apparently dissatisfied and overworked doctors, mostly women, stuck on middle grades, and I wasn't completely sure it was for me. In early 1995, during an oncology posting I'd taken up to enhance my OG training, I started to apply for jobs in Australia via an organised scheme. I also sent one letter on spec to a hospital in New Zealand at the suggestion of a Kiwi college. I was expecting a formal response by post in due course, so I was somewhat taken back when I was called by the phone one day at work and found myself being offered a job by a neonatal consultant in Auckland. I said yes. While I'd been making these applications, at the back of my mind there was always the lurking regret that if I went away, the chances were I'd lose touch with Jerry. We hadn't talked about our respective plans, and what I didn't know was that he too was seeking to work abroad in either the US or New Zealand. Later, the un- later, the unfair, if not entirely serious story doing the rounds of the Glasgow hospital's grapevine. It had been known as Jerry found out I was going to Auckland. He decided to chase me across and immediately started applying for jobs himself in the land of the long white cloud. Flattering though this version of events may be from my point of view, the truth was that he was already waiting to hear back from several hospitals in both New Zealand and America. What I would like to think, however, is that the news that I would be in Auckland made the decision between the two countries a bit easier for him. I was the first to leave in July 1995, and I arrived in New Zealand not knowing a soul. On my first day in my new job, a friend of a friend with whom I'd been put in touch with rang me to see how I got on and asked casually, "Do you want to come for a run tonight?" In the way that at home we'd say, "Fancy a beer after work?" Although I was sporty, running was not part of my repertoire, and that was Jerry's province. But as this guy was the only person I knew in Auckland, I agreed. That evening I found myself squelching and puffing across a muddy field. Every step involved trying to yank your foot out of the clinging mire. My new Kiwi mate pointed to a hill up ahead. One Tree Hill, he suggested. I nodded confidently. All the way up there he was making conversation, asking questions to which I barely had the breath to give one-word answers. Honest to God, I thought I was going to die. When mercifully we reached the summit, he stretched out his arm to show me the view spread out beneath. From this 182-metre volcanic peak, a famous Auckland landmark, you can see the whole city. Look at that, he enthused and looked at those amazing clouds. All I could think was, sod the clouds, I'm going to be sick. But I wasn't about to be beaten by One Tree Hill. The next evening, I went out to do the run on my own, and I did it again and again until I conquered it. That's me. I might not be in the world, but what I do have in abundance is determination and doggedness. After that, I became a bit of a convert, and as well as playing mixed netball in New Zealand, I began to run regularly. Given Jerry's devotion to the sport, it was probably just as well I enjoyed it too. Now I've just got a phone call here, so I'm wondering if it's knocked me off. Is everything okay? Can you hear me still? Dry as a bone. Do you think I should have read this from when they all went away on holiday? Right, okay, so where am I? Oh God, where am I? Okay, yeah. So, thanks, Liz. I loved my job in the neonatal unit and I loved working with babies, but it was something of a baptism of fire. I was classed as a registrar, even though I had no neonatal experience and had junior doctors working under me who did. I was going to be putting big fancy lines into tiny 24-week-old babies on my own. Just give us a ring and we'll come in for the first view. Then you'll be fine, the consultant said. And I was. I just needed to get used to the laid back Kiwi way of doing things. Once I had, I found New Zealanders to be lovely, capable, easygoing people who work to live rather than the other way around. Jerry arrived in the country 2 months after I did, but he wasn't exactly round the corner. His post in general medicine and cardiology was in Napier, a flight or over 5 hours by road from Auckland. But in spite of the distance involved, we saw as much of each other as we could. Away from home and from everyone else, we knew we focused on each other at last, and our relationship immediately moved up a notch to the romantic level. In some ways, the fact that we'd been friendly for over 2 years made that transition easier. We already knew quite a lot about each other. After all, initially though, adjusting to this new footing was a bit strange and awkward, and we were both very nervous, like teenagers going on their first few dates. Thankfully, that stage soon passed. After my stint in the neonatal unit, I took 6 months jobs in O&G in Wellington, which is about the same distance from Napier of Auckland. We were in New Zealand for a year altogether. It was an amazing time and we were so happy. We both loved the country and our lives there. I think Jerry would say seriously had considered staying on for good. But sad as I was to leave, for me it was just too far away from family and friends, particularly my parents. And now there was no question that wherever we went, it would be as a couple. Having finally found each other, we felt we were the luckiest people on the planet. So in September '96, we returned to Glasgow, Jerry to West Infirmary and to begin his research for an MD in exercise psychology while I worked initially at the maternity unit at Queen's Mother's Hospital before transferring to anaesthetics at the Western Infirmary in '97. We rented a flat together to start with and then bought our own terraced house very close to Jerry's brother Johnny and his family. We were married in Liverpool in December 1998 by our good friends Father Paul Seddon. We chose the weekend before Christmas for the wedding, with our friends and extended family scattered all over the place. Taking advantage of the holiday periods was the best way of making sure as many of them as possible would be there. Added to that, I had always loved Christmas time. It was a wonderful day, and we looked forward eagerly to our future as a married couple and to the children who would make our lives complete. Madeline. Jerry and I were keen to start a family as soon as possible, but after a couple of years with no sign of pregnancy, it became clear that it wasn't going to be as easy as we assumed. Those who have been lucky enough to conceive effortlessly often fail to appreciate how heartbreaking and testing trying fruitlessly for a baby can be. Month after month of aching disappointment, punctuated by a mid-cycle urgency to have sex at the crucial time, which removes all the spontaneity and to have sex, all the spontaneity is much of the fun from making love. Sex becomes a clinical requirement rather than an enjoyable and intimate experience. And as time drags by, you find yourself having to force a joyful smile and congratulate your friends as they become pregnant, apparently without the slightest difficulty. We were now living in Leicestershire, having taken the decision to move south in 2000 to enable Jerry to take up training posts in cardiology positions. We were very hard to come by. Even then, he had to complete his first part of his rotation in Boston in Lincolnshire, a 2-hour cross-country drive away. By this time, I had been promoted to registrar post in anesthetics in Glasgow and was working hard towards completing my postgraduate exams or fellowship within 6 months. I'd been able to transfer to the registrar rotation in Leicester, and we had settled in Quennyborough, I think, a picture postcard village with a couple of pubs, a general store, and an excellent butcher. By coincidence, my mum's brother Brian Kennedy lived in Rockley, just 10 minutes along the road. Now retired, he had been headmaster of a school in Loughborough. I was close to Uncle Brian and Auntie Janet when I was a child. We'd spent every Christmas and Easter with them, and their children, Aileen and James. We were like a little sister and brother. It was a great bonus to have family nearby. Leicester wasn't Liverpool or Glasgow, and I found people more reserved than I'm used to. But our neighbours, a mix of young professionals and retired people, we all knew too. Our Muse homes was part of the recent conversion of an old country house, so everyone there was new, and that helped. Shortly after we moved to Quenneborough, I decided to leave anaesthetics and train for general practice. It wasn't an easy decision to make. I was happy in anaesthetics, and it meant that my fellowship would be redundant in terms of furthering my career. But just as Jerry was finishing his stint in Boston, I was due to begin 6 months there. I felt that if we both continued to work as hospital specialists on call at different times and in different places, it would not only be a quality of life that suffered, but also our chances of conceiving a child. With the variety of hospital posts I already had under my belt, all I needed was a 6 month position in psychiatry to gain the breadth and experience required for GP training. However, I still wanted to finish my anaesthetics fellowship. It entailed loads of work, and everybody told me I was crazy to carry on with it. But I had started it, I wanted to complete it, and I did. Deep down, Jerry understood. We are both finishers, Jerry and I. Neither of us gives up anything easily. I did my GP training at surgery in Melton Mowbray, one of the first specialist GP practices in the country, which remains the largest in the UK. It boasts a number of GPs with specialist interests, including cardiology, ophthalmology, dermatology, sports medicine, ENT, as well as a sizable team of nurses, receptionists, and so on. and operates internal referral systems whereby one GP can refer a patient to the appropriately qualified colleague. This system greatly reduces the number of patients having to be sent to the hospital with conditions that can be treated in the surgery by a GP with expertise in the relevant field. Well, that's changed, hasn't it? Hey, thanks, Pink. I'm going just having a little swig. It'll be better when we get more into the, nitty-gritty. When I'd finished my training, I secured a locum post at the surgery. I enjoyed the job, particularly attending and chatting to the old folk. Though I found it much harder in many respects than working in a hospital. In general practice, you are right in say that again. In general practice, you are right in the cold face with no idea what you are going to be presented with next. Although you have the support of your colleagues, you are working much more independently, making quick decisions on your own all day long about a limitless array of problems without lab tests, x-rays on hand to guide you. Both jobs can be stressful, of course, in their different ways, but I think general practice is especially hard to do. Well, you need the skill and aptitude to spot the unusual amid the ordinary, not to mention the ability and compassion to deal with emotional and social issues in a very short space of time. In spite of the big changes in our home and working environments, we had soon made friends. Two of the closest being Fiona Webster and her partner David Payne. I had first met Fiona in December 2000 in the staff coffee room at the Leicester General Intensive Care Unit. We were both anaesthetic registrars. It was the first day after I passed my anaesthetics fellowship, so I've been in an upbeat mood. It didn't take me long to discover that she was my kind of person. We become such great mates, the one that consultant colleagues rather cheekily used to refer us as Charlie's Angels. In our spare time, Jerry and I would go out for meals with friends or run in the fields around Gwenborough. Jerry played the occasional game of squash and joined Rothley Park Golf Club. Life then was full of busy and good apart from the dark shadow cast over everything by the absence of any developments on the pregnancy front. I tried not to talk too much about how hard this was all for me and Jerry. I didn't want to come across as mad or obsessed. In reality, though, I think most women probably become a bit fixated once they had been made the all important decision to have a baby. And in my case, of course, there had never been the slightest doubt about whether motherhood was for me. It only had ever been a question of when. Eventually, I saw a doctor, underwent tests, and was diagnosed with endometriosis, a common condition in which cells similar to those lining the womb grow in areas outside it, and which can sometimes cause fertility problems. I embarked on an over a year of surgery with laser treatment and hormonal injections, all to no avail. When we still failed to conceive naturally, the only option open to us was assisted conception. As a senior house officer in gynecology, I'd seen the sadness and the desperation etched on the faces of women coming up to the ward to undergo fertility treatment and declared that in their position I'd accept what was meant to be rather than put myself through in vitro fertilization. The whole process seemed too traumatic and fraught with disappointment. Oh, the certainties of youth. I never dreamed that the same thing might happen to me. And as it is the case now with so many things in life, it is impossible to predict how you will feel or react in a certain situation until you actually experience it for yourself. When it came to it, I didn't think twice, having never for a moment questioned that I wanted to be a mother, to share my life and my love with a brood of children. I reasoned that if accomplishing my goal meant subjecting myself to IVF, so be it. In a strange way, even taking the decision gave me a huge sense of relief. Suddenly, it seemed the responsibility for conceiving had been lifted from our shoulders, and the pressure on Jerry and me was eased. Our first attempt at IVF went smoothly, and the invasive nature of the treatments, the injections, the scans, and subsequent procedures didn't upset or worry me at all. Everything was going marvellously. I was responding very well to the drugs. I produced plenty of eggs, and an excellent percentage of those once fertilized by Jerry's sperm resulted in embryos. Not all embryos survive beyond the first few days, and opinions on the optimum time to transfer them into the womb were divided. Some clinicians featured implanting them early, on day 2 or 3, on the grounds that they were better inside than out. Others felt that the embryos that had made it to the blastocyst stage 5 days outside the womb would be the strongest and therefore the ones most likely to flourish in the long run. We had 13 fertilized eggs. We decided to have some of them frozen and to have 2 blastocysts implanted. Encouraged by the textbook progress of the treatment and the optimism of the IVF team, it's a perfect cycle as you can get. Both Jerry and I were naively confident that it was going to work. Even so, we weren't prepared to run any risks, no matter how small, and I took every possible precaution. I completely avoided alcohol, exercise, and sex. I had showers rather than baths, as if it were somehow possible for the embryos to float off into the bathwater. I lived my life wrapped in enough cotton wool to fill an aircraft hangar. I remember going into the hospital after 2 weeks for a pregnancy test, very calm on the outside, but very excited, and even more vivid memories and the physical pain of the blow that followed. The test was negative. I simply couldn't believe it. Back then, I couldn't imagine there could be any worse pain to this than this. To this day, I cannot understand how I allowed myself to be so certain, especially as I knew, not only as a would-be mother, but also as a doctor, how emotionally devastating the peaks and troughs associated with IVF can be. My baseless optimism only made the crash to earth that much harder. I cried and cried and cried. After breaking the news to Jerry, who was almost as crushed as I was, as my mum, I went for a hard, fast run to try to expel some of my distress, pain, and anger. It helped a little or so. A day or two later, I was back on the bus, as Auntie Nora would say, in control and geared up for the wait until we could try again. 2 months later, we were ready for a second shot. Using 2 of the embryos we'd had frozen, this time all I needed to do was go to the hospital at the right time of the month and have the embryos transferred into my uterus. I was at work when I took the call. I'd been expecting from the hospital, but instead of being asked to come in there and then, as I was anticipating, I was told in very matter-of-fact tones that unfortunately the defrosted embryos hadn't survived and we were therefore couldn't go ahead with the procedure. And that, it seemed, was that. Another pallet of bricks dropped on my chest. That night, after the inevitable deluge of tears, Jerry and I went for a consoling curry and a few beers. At least we had each other, we said. Then we picked ourselves up and prepared to start all over again. Although the IVF team's plan was for us to return in 6 weeks to discuss the next step, after thinking it through, I could see no reason why, provided the facilities were available, we couldn't start a new cycle at the end of that week. The timing was right, and I hadn't been taking any fertility medication which could potentially interfere with the procedure. It's baffling to anyone undergoing fertility treatment how casually everyone else can talk about weeks and months, as if you can just go away, forget about it, and concentrate on something else. A month is a lifetime to a woman who has almost spent years trying to get pregnant. Once you're on that bus, the last thing you want to do is get off. We were so pleased when the IVF team agreed. But then a practical obstacle arose. We discovered at that point when Jerry would need to produce a sperm sample for fertilisation, he was due to be in Berlin. He had been invited to the biggest cardiology conference in Europe to give a presentation about his research. It was an important stepping stone in his career, and he was thrilled. My heart sank. It would mean more months of waiting, but how could he miss this conference? That evening, as I was cooking dinner, Jerry came into the kitchen, gave me a hug, and told me he decided not to go to Berlin. The IVF, he told me, was far more important. I was very relieved and very grateful to him. This time the cycle didn't go quite as smoothly. Once again, I responded well to the drugs, maybe a little too well, because my ovaries became overstimulated. I'd swear they were the size of melons. At any rate, I was very uncomfortable. It was agreed with the team that we would go for a day 3 embryo transfer. On day 2, however, we received an urgent call from the embryologist who told us the embryos weren't looking good, at least not as good as before. He recommended that I come into the hospital for the transfer immediately. Suddenly, we both felt very despondent. If a perfect cycle hadn't worked, what were the chances of this one being successful? 2 embryos were placed inside my uterus, but this time we did not allow ourselves to get even slightly excited, and the cotton wool coddling went out of the window. I arrived home from the hospital and headed straight into the garden to do some planting. If this was going to work, it would, I told myself, but I wasn't holding my breath. Given what had happened after our first attempt, we decided to do a pregnancy test at home the night before I was due to have the hospital test, so that if it was negative, we could shed all our tears in private. A faint blue line appeared on the indicator. Jerry and I looked at each other. It's not dark enough, I said, although I knew the instructions advised that any line should be interpreted as a positive result. I just didn't dare trust it. I finally fell asleep that night in a strange state of controlled emotion. The next morning at the hospital, the positive pregnancy test was confirmed. Everyone was ecstatic, but no one, of course, more so than Jerry and me. Inevitably, there were more tears, but this time they were happy tears. I felt like a different woman, taller, buoyant, instantly radiant. I could not stop smiling. I thank God every hour. We didn't tell anyone, family or friends, for a couple of weeks. We were too concerned about tempting fate, and something at that early stage, it just didn't feel real. For days on end, I would repeat to myself, I have a positive pregnancy test. I have a positive pregnancy test, rather than acknowledging I'm pregnant. It wasn't until I had an ultrasound scan at 6 weeks and we saw a little beating heart that I allowed myself to believe it. And that was the first time we saw our little Madeline. Even then, she was beautiful. Aww. I remember how lovely it felt telling my mum and dad that they were going to be grandparents. Of course, they were overjoyed. I'm sure the heartache over the problems we'd had conceiving added to the fact that, as an only child, I was their only chance of grandchildren, made this baby specially precious to them. My pregnancy was totally without complication. No sickness, no back pain, no bleeding, no swelling. I felt great. I swam at least every other day, right up to the day before I went into labour, and I absolutely loved being pregnant. Rubbing baby lotion over my bump was such a beautiful feeling, like touching my baby. In common with most mothers, I'm sure, I will remember forever amazing sensation, the pure intimacy of my baby moving around inside me. Neither Jerry nor I wanted to know whether we were expecting a boy or a girl. I'm well known for liking surprises. One of those people who refuses to open even a single present before Christmas Day. For some reason, I always thought of the baby as a boy. I've no idea why. Perhaps simply because I've visualised myself in many a dreamy moment with a little boy. Who knows? We'd settled on the name Aidan, and although we had tossed around a few options for a girl, there wasn't one in particular we agreed on. On the 12th of May 2003, at a routine antenatal appointment 9 days before my due date, I was found to be already in labour. Like many first-time mothers, I'd had it all planned out, the music I wanted, the snacks I'd had to hand, the cooling mist spray for my face, but in the event I was whisked straight into maternity unit, and until Jerry was summoned, I didn't even have the customary pre-packed overnight bag. When it came to it, although I wasn't interested in any distractions, just completely focused on the job I had to do. As Jerry offered words of encouragement, I rocked from side to side, biting down on the gas and air mouthpiece. It occurred to me that I must look like Stevie Wonder. It's strange the things that go through your head when you're in extremis, I can't even say the word. That's about the 10th word I can't say. There's no escaping the fact that giving birth is bloody painful, but it was quite a calm labour, oblivious to everyone and everything around me. Fortunately, it was uncomplicated and pretty quick as labour goes. I remember finally feeling the head crowning and saying something pathetic to the midwife. It's stingy, if memory serves. Stingy? I never was one to make a fuss, I suppose. And then out popped our baby. After years of longing for this day, here we were, parents. There can surely be no greater moment in anyone's life. And here she was, not our little boy, but our little girl. I'm not sure quite why this came as such a big surprise to us. After all, there are only two flavours, but because it was a surprise, the moment was extra special. Our daughter was perfect, a beautiful round head, no marks, not at all squashed, big eyes and a lovely compact little body, the most wonderful thing I had ever set eyes on. I loved her instantly. Of course, Aidan was out of the frame now of the girls' names we had in mind. Madeline was my favourite, and Madeline she became. Madeline Beth McCann. She screamed straight away, something we'd get used to over the next 6 months. Jerry's sister Trish called while we were still in the delivery suite. Is that your weed? She asked with a hint of amusement on hearing the 200 decibels screeching in the background. Jesus! I couldn't take my eyes off Madeline. I thank God over and over again for bringing her into our lives. Every time she looked even vaguely in my direction, the tears welled up. I'd never known this feeling before, that it was even possible to love someone so much. And I love Jerry a lot, believe me, my Madeline. I didn't sleep at all during my first night as a mother. I still couldn't stop looking at my beautiful daughter. Admittedly, the fact that Madeline was testing the extremities of her vocal range for a large part of it might have been another factor. I remember one of the midwives coming into the room a couple of times and asking if I would like to take Madeline, if she would like me to take Madeline away for a while so that I could get some rest. Take her away. That was the last thing I wanted. I didn't care about sleep. All I cared about was being with Madeline. The next evening, my mum and dad and my old friend Nikki arrived to meet our daughter. My dad confessed to pushing 100 on the motorway to make it down from Liverpool before the end of visiting time. But you didn't hear that from me, he said, an old hand at childbirth, having been one of the first ever fathers at Oxford Street Maternity Hospital where I was born, allowed to stay with his wife throughout her labour instead of being ejected from the wards to pace the corridor outside. By all accounts, Granny Healy was shocked at this outrageous newfangled idea. The new grandparents were besotted with Madeline from the beginning, having lost her own mother so early. I think my mum missed having her own support when I was small, and it had always been a sadness to her that I hadn't known my nana better. So having the chance to take care of her own granddaughter had to and to be there, sorry, and to be there for me meant a great deal to her. As for my dad, he once told me that if he were able to design his own granddaughter and have it knitted for him, Madeline would be it. I think I might love her even more than I love you, he added. I wasn't sure whether that was intended as a compliment, but knowing how much he loved me, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Jerry's parents and his brothers and sisters came hot on the heels of mine, all of them thrilled to bits. The dramatic impact that one small person can have on your life never ceases to amaze me. Suddenly, your whole world revolves around this little bundle, and you don't mind in the slightest the overwhelming love and protectiveness you feel towards your child makes you incredibly vulnerable. Probably as vulnerable as you have ever been since you were a baby yourself. Now, however, you understand that this is a vulnerability that will never leave you. How we do, everyone? I'll just have another drink. So, oh God. Okay. So Madeline suffered from colic. She cried for the best part of each day for the first 4 months of her life. When she had one of her screaming episodes, her little fists would clench tightly and her face would turn purple with discomfort. Jerry and I spent hours running through our checklist. Is she too cold? Is she too hot? Is she hungry? Does she need a nappy changing? Before we were able to accept that this was colic and this was what happens with colic. Unfortunately for Madeline, it could strike at any time, not just in early evenings as is typically the case. I remember feeling so helpless as I tried everything I could think of to ease her pain. The position feed, don't feed, rub her tummy, gripe water, infracol, maybe a dummy. Needless to say, those early days could be very long and she was constantly in my arms. If you pick her up all the time, she'll never go to anyone else, people would remark. It's hard to remember how I managed when I look back and picture myself buttering a piece of toast with one hand. I'm very, very bad at going without food, holding Madeline in the other arm and never being able to answer the phone or even go to the toilet unaccompanied. Madeline and I spent endless days dancing around our living room to the sounds of MTV, Beyonce, Crazy in Love, and Justin Timberlake's Rock Your Body. We are our favourites along with a subconsciously choreographed routine to Mummy's own rendition of She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain. Poor Jerry would arrive home from work and would hardly have a foot over the threshold before he was handed a roaring bundle while I went upstairs for a loo break, a scream-free moment, and a chance to regain the use of my arms. There were several occasions when the three of us would be huddled together in the kitchen crying, Madeline with her colic and Jerry and I the futility of our attempts to take away her pain. I was always terrified that Madeline would hurt herself. I remember once when she was about 4 weeks old, refusing to make a car journey with her because the baby seat appeared to be wobbling very, very slightly. I know Jerry felt I was a bit over the top sometimes, but babies seem so fragile, and with your first, it's hard to get the balance right. I always erred on the side of caution. Quite apart from the colic, Madeline seemed to have an aversion to sleep at the best of times. It still astonishes us that she could survive on so little. There she'd be, surveying her surroundings with those great big peepers, studying anyone who came into her orbit, just taking it all in. Perhaps her curiosity and capacity for observation might explain why she always seemed so far ahead of the game and became such a knowing and endearing little girl at such an early stage. Auntie Michelle, my great friends, bought her a Blossom Farm baby gym from the Early Learning Centre, which had detachable soft toys. When you pressed the lamb's head, the tune of You Are My Sunshine would play. I remember singing those words to Madeline so often, with a few key personalised alterations. You are my Madeline. My only Madeline, you make me happy when skies are grey. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my Madeline away. The terrible irony of those words brings bittersweet tears to my eyes when I think of them now. They have taken on a darker undertone, like the tinkling notes of a nursery rhyme in a horror film. Happily, Madeline grew out of her sleeplessness when it came the breathtaking. Sorry, say that again. Happily, Madeline grew out of her sleeplessness. When it came, the breakthrough was sudden. We all went to Italy in September for David and Fiona's wedding, and one night, for no obvious reason, we put Madeline down and she slept for a solid 6 hours. That was a real red letter day. Those first few months were quiet and isolating time for me on the whole. While almost all my friends in Liverpool and Glasgow had children, my Leicester friends did not, which meant we were working and around. They were gods, which meant they were working and not around during the day. Mostly then, it was just me and my special little buddy. Although Quenelsborough was a lovely village, our walks there tended to be rather aimless, and there was no cafe or anything to walk to, and the fields where Jerry and I went running were impossible with a baby buggy. So in some ways, returning to work part-time in November 2003, while Madeline started at a nursery near our home, was not such a bad thing. Although I hated the thought of being apart from her, I felt I needed to keep my hands in at the nursery. Professionally, it's not a great idea to drop out for long periods. I also knew that nursery would bring a little more variety into Madeline's world. Leaving her was an incredible wrench at first, but as we settled into our new routine, I found it gave me a break of sorts. In terms of doing something different at least, and mixing with people, and it helped me get my spongy brain back into gear. As it turned out, this arrangement didn't last long. In January 2004, when Madeline was 7 months old, we rented out our house and moved for a year to Amsterdam, where Jerry had a fellowship to study cardiac magnetic resonance imaging (MRI). The use of this specialized imagery technique in cardiology was at that time relatively new in the UK, and the posting was a big success. Jerry's great new college soon became firm friends, and when he landed in Amsterdam, advanced his career on a return. Since it wasn't going to be feasible for me to work in Amsterdam, I had Madeline all to myself again. I've always considered myself very lucky to have been given the opportunity to spend quality time with her. We joined two mums and toddlers groups and a swimming club where we could quickly make friends. We would go to the park, drop in a cafe, or just enjoy a lazy girl's afternoon in our apartment, treating ourselves to a movie and a slice of cake. It was a little piece of heaven. As special as Madeline was to us, and as fortunate as we felt to have her, both Jerry and I were keen to expand our family. Given our fertility problems, this was going to mean another attempt at IVF. We had no way of knowing if it was likely to work again, and even if it did, how long it might take. At first step in the spring, I went along to see a GP. Not being Dutch citizens, we were not sure if we would be entitled to any treatment at all. So we were surprised and delighted when just a month later we had an appointment with a specialist, and within only 6 more weeks we found ourselves starting another cycle of IVF in Amsterdam. For the most part, everything was far easier psychologically this time round. As much as I wanted another baby, Madeline had lifted me from the despair of childlessness. Thank God, and I was now able to approach IVF a little more philosophically. If it succeeded, brilliant. If it didn't, then we only had to look at what we had already and to be content. It was a weird period emotionally. I couldn't stop feeling a little guilty, as if we were somehow overlooking Madeline, not focusing on her 100% in our haste to move on to the next one. I loved her so much, but I also knew that a little brother and sister would enhance her life too. The treatment cycle did the trick, and I was pregnant again. We were overjoyed. This time, however, the scan revealed two little beating hearts. Twins. Wow. We were thrilled, but also a little apprehensive. After having worked in obstetrics and aesthetics, it was only too aware of the increased risks and complications associated with carrying twins. I wondered if my skinny body would be able to accommodate two babies. Our worries were completely brushed aside by two of Jerry's Dutch colleagues. As Jerry was voicing his concerns, he was interrupted by young Robin enthusiastically chipping in. Fantastic! Two for the price of one. The lovely unknown just looked at Jerry and revealed, I'm a twin, in a so what's the problem kind of way. Suddenly our concerns seemed, if not misplaced, at least excessive. All the same, my second pregnancy was nothing like the first. Obviously, with Madeline to look after and to entertain, there was definitely no sneaking off for a little rest for a start. More significantly, I felt very different physically, even in the early weeks. During the second month, I craved high fat foods. I don't know how many text messages Jerry received begging him to get me some chips on his way home. Then the thought of so much fat is quite repulsive to me normally, but at the time my body was telling me I needed it. Jerry and my friends will testify that any combination of the words Kate and hunger represents a kind of emergency at the best of times. But at this stage of my pregnancy, there seemed no limits to the amount of chips, sausage rolls, pizzas, and Mars bars my body cried out for. It was just as well as things turned out because for the next 5 or 6 weeks I was completely polaxed by nausea. I can remember doubting I'd ever be able to go through this again, which, given my overwhelming desire for a big family, is a measure of just how awful I felt. I couldn't eat, and even swallowing a sip of water was a struggle. And the smell of food, even the very mention of food, provoked a strong physical reaction. I would hear Jerry calling to Madeline, would you like some potatoes and broccoli? And I'd roll into a ball with my hands over my ears. Consciously or not, we all feel better when we can see those close to us being properly nourished. I know how satisfied I feel when my children scrape their bowls clean. Jerry found my problem very difficult to ignore. He was worried about me and about the babies, and I'm sure he missed the three of us sitting down together and sharing a meal. But there was nothing I could do about it. My body simply wanted to be still and be left alone. Another concern was the persistent lower pelvic pressure and discomfort that came on only 16 weeks into my pregnancy. I remember walking around Amsterdam for the next 8 weeks with my hands cupped under my belly like a truss, trying to alleviate some of the weight, while at the same time occupying a very energetic toddler. Considering how normal I felt during my first pregnancy, I was a little worried, but only a little. The end result was going to make these trials more than worthwhile, after all. However, it was not long before things took a more dramatic turn. At 24 weeks, a transvaginal ultrasound scan to measure the cervix. The shorter it is, the greater the risk of the mother going into premature labour, revealed that mine had pretty much reduced to nothing. I was immediately put onto a trolley and admitted to a ward where I was to remain on bed rest to reduce the gravitational pressure. The tears flowed, initially not so much because of the risk to my pregnancy, but because I was distraught at the prospect of being parted from Madeline. If your babies come now, the specialist told me bluntly, they die. Perhaps his English did not stretch to the expression of empathy or tact. Perhaps the Dutch bedside manner is just to tell it like it is. Either way, Once the seriousness of the situation sank in, so did the fear, and my prayers increased in frequency. Thankfully, my dad was staying with us at the time and there to give Jerry a hand taking care of Madeline. After 5 days of immobility, my condition improved and I was allowed home on the proviso that I did not do any more than I'd been doing in hospital. Nothing in short. So from then until the babies were born, we needed help. And when my dad left, he was replaced by my mum, Jerry's mum, and a relay of friends and relatives who came out from the UK over the next 6 weeks to stay with us in our 1.5 bedroom apartment. It was hard for me not being able to pick Madeline up or play with her properly. All we could do really was cuddle on the bed. Still, I was grateful that at least I hadn't had to remain in the hospital. My difficult pregnancy wasn't the only upsetting and stressful event that year. Jerry's dad has been diagnosed with cancer and he was becoming more and more frail. It was terrible for poor Eileen to watch her husband over 40 years drinking before her eyes. Eileen had not been well herself either, undergoing surgery and radiotherapy for a salivary gland tumour as well as a hysterectomy. Then the marriage of two very good friends of ours broke down unexpectedly just before their daughter's first birthday, and a distressed mother and child came to stay with us straight afterwards. At the time, Jerry described 2004 as a annus horribilis, but it was, what was that? But if we thought that this year was bad, it would pale into insignificant compared with what lay ahead in the future. At 27 weeks, I began to bleed and had to go back into hospital. We were worried about the babies being born prematurely in the Netherlands. If this happens, we would have to stay on after Jerry's fellowship had ended, with no family support, no income, so it was imperative to get back home as soon as possible. Provided, of course, our specialist felt it was safe enough for me to travel. He did, and on the 1st of December, a month ahead of schedule, we departed for the UK. On the advice of my consultant, I flew, accompanied by my Auntie Janet, with Jerry, Madeline, and most of our belongings, followed by a car and a ferry. Jerry then had to return to Holland to complete the final 2 weeks of his post, while a new stream of willing relatives arrived in Quelensborough to help Madeline and me. Another advantage of our early return was that it enabled me to get Madeline re-established at nursery for a few mornings each week before the babies came rather than afterwards. The last thing I wanted was her to feel sidelined once the new arrivals made their entrance. In those final weeks, I cut a bizarre figure, much to the amusement of my friends. I've been the first to admit that my legs, though they served their purpose perfectly well, have never been what you might call sturdy. Pathetic might be a better word, and they looked even sadder poking out between the huge protuberance on top of them. An Easter egg on legs doesn't do it justice, but I was very proud of my body and its achievements, and once again, in spite of all the tribulations and worries, I'd love being pregnant. As with Madeline, we'd been told not to have sex. God, hang on. We'd asked not to be told the sex of the twins. Told not to have sex. I read that wrong, didn't I? Where am I? Blah, 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 blah. Tribulations. I'd love being pregnant with Madeline. We'd asked not to be told the sex of the twins, but having had so many ultrasound scans, we collected a lot of pictures of them, which we couldn't help poring over. To Jerry and me, the evidence seemed clear. 2 more girls. At 39 weeks, the twins were induced, which brought a right smile to my face, given that I'd just spent 3 anxious months trying to prevent them from arriving too soon. All the same, I wouldn't have wanted to put their staying power to the test. If lying on my back for 15 weeks meant our babies would be safer and stronger, every second was worth it. 3 days before I went into hospital, Jerry's Uncle Pat and Aunt Alexis came up from Essex to see us, and within an hour of their arrival, Uncle Pat, an ex-professional footballer, collapsed with a heart attack. When he slumped on Alexa's shoulder, we thought at first he was just messing around. We soon realised he wasn't. As Jerry's phoned for an ambulance, and I worried that I was going to need to begin CPR, which would have been pretty difficult given that my belly was the size of a small barn and I could hardly move. A delivery man came to the door with a Chinese takeaway we'd ordered. Amid the pandemonium, Madeline appeared, pushing her early learning centre medical trolley, placed her toy stethoscope on Uncle Pat's chest, and said, "Boom, boom." Talk about surreal. Jerry was able to get hold of some of his on-call colleagues and explain the situation. So in spite of a slight delay with the ambulance, Uncle Pat was rushed straight through. He got to the hospital and the problem artery was unblocked. Thankfully, he was soon on the road to recovery. If you're going to have a heart attack, perhaps a cardiologist's house is not a bad place to have it. On the afternoon of the 1st of February 2005, Sean and Emily made their appearance in the world. I was lucky enough to be able to have a normal delivery. Sean led the way with his head, and his sister followed, preferring to flash her bottom first to all and sundry. We were totally taken aback to discover we had a boy. Having fully expected two girls, how rubbish we were. Needless to say, neither of us have any plans to become obstetric ultrasonographers. Once again, being caught out made the birth a lovely surprise, and to Jerry's delight at having a son was clear from the big cheesy grin he could do nothing to disguise. For my part, I was a little shocked initially by this boy of mine lying on my tummy. He wasn't the prettiest, God bless him. He was squashed from the birth and his head was lopsided, but I loved him regardless. And I'm glad to say he's a really handsome chap these days, just gorgeous. Emily was beautiful from the start, petite with little rosebud mouth. Suddenly, we were a family of five. How lucky we felt. A few hours later, Jerry brought Madeline in to meet her little brothers and sister, just 20 months old herself at the time. In she came, her little cute lilac pyjamas and puppy dog slippers. When she saw Sean and Emily, her eyes lit up, her mouth opened wide in astonishment and wonder, and she lifted her arms in the air, her fingers splayed like little starfish. My heart was ready to explode in her excitement. After inspecting her two new prospective playmates, she joined me on the bed, and together we were wheeled off to the postnatal ward. It was such a special moment, one of my fondest memories of Madeline, and I cannot think of it now without breaking down. Happily, Sean and Emily were very easy babies as babies go. They fed and slept. Madeline adapted to the changes incredibly well, especially considering how young she still was herself. Obviously, ours was a very busy household, but it was full of love and laughter. On weekdays, my friend Amanda would come in for a few hours every day, which freed up me to get some of the household chores done and to collect Madeline from nursery. It mattered to me that I was the one to pick her up. I wanted her to feel as important and as loved as she always had. I breastfed Sean and Emily, and as I had Madeline, so there were spells when I wished I had a few extra arms. Usually amid too late afternoon, when I was alone with the children and Madeline would be getting tired, I would have to feed the twins one at a time. When I was on my own, which meant that I was feeding the first, the other would not only be getting hungry and grumpy, but was also be vulnerable to attack from big sister needing attention. Sometimes I'd be feeding one baby and pushing the other's rocker with my foot while a little girl clambered across my shoulders. Overnight feeds were easier as then I could feed both babies at once, which cut the time it took by half. But I only managed that because my husband was an absolute star. He would get up with me, help latch the second twin onto my breast, and then make me tea and toast while unloading the dishwasher. It was great teamwork, although thinking about it now, I wonder whether I had the better deal. Only 6 weeks after Sean and Amelia were born, Jerry's dad passed away. When Jerry's sister Trish rang to tell us that Johnny was approaching the end, we threw what we needed into the car, gathered up the kids, and drove to Glasgow as quick as we could, arriving at the hospital in the early evening. By the next morning, Johnny had gone. We'll always regret that he never had the chance to see the twins, but it gives us some comfort that he was able to spend time with baby Madeline in his first few years, foregoing a bond that will doubtless have enriched both their lives. The following 2 years were very happy ones. Jerry was appointed consultant cardiologist at Glenfield Hospital in Leicester soon after Sean and Amelia were born, and once they passed their first birthday, I returned to work part-time as a GP and also as a clinical tutor to medical students for a half day every week. Jerry and I didn't have much time to ourselves these days. On Friday nights in the pub with our colleagues were long gone. We couldn't even manage to go for a run together now and had to take it in turns, but we didn't mind at all. We were living the family life we'd always wanted, and it was everything we'd ever dreamed it would be. On the rare occasion when we went out for a meal on our own or with friends, Uncle Brian and Auntie Janet would babysit. The Muse house in Queniborough was a bit cramped for 5 of us, especially as we often have families and friends to stay, and in the spring of 2006 we moved to a larger home in a quiet cul-de-sac in Rothley, the village where Uncle Brian and Auntie Janet lived. Here we had a post office and general store, a cafe, several good pubs and an interesting shops which gave my afternoon walks with the children more of a sense of purpose. The more exciting destination by far for the children, there was a farm in the neighbouring village that was open to the public, offering all sorts of treats, like tractor rides and buckets of feed for the children to give to the animals. At Stonehurst Farm, Madeline loved feeding the sheep, talking to the donkeys, and swinging on the rope in the hay barn. She would chat away to Farmer John all the while. She was intrigued by the fact that his wife had the same name as hers, but as Madeline never ceased to remind us, it was spelled differently. The highlight of the afternoon would be a thrilling ride on the trailer rides towed by Farmer John's new tractor. He would lift Sean and Emily in their double buggy onto the trailer. Madeline and I would clamber aboard alongside the other visitors, and off we go. I have such wonderful memories of our first summer in Rothley. The new house really felt like home, and the 5 of us spent many sunny-filled days in the garden, on the swings and slides, blowing bubbles, painting in the scud, and Auntie Tricia would put that was just the kids, I hastened to add, or chatting in the paddling pool together. It was fascinating watching how children interacted with each other as they developed and different their past personalities were. When they were small, Sean and Madeline were the closest in nature, and early on they formed a natural alliance, although later Madeline and Emily began to do lots of girly things together. Emily was more confident, brave, and a bit mad, and initially the one in whom I saw myself least, but always admired. In the garden she would run up the steps and the slides and hurl herself down the chute with a crazed cry of exhilaration. Ha ha ha, Sean would say. He would often climb the steps carefully, then on reaching the top have second thoughts, turn around and come back down the same way. When they did jigsaws, I need to find out how you say this name. It's Amelie, Amelie, oh God, Pink, you'll know, you've read the book. She would use brute force to wedge any old pieces together. Sean would meticulously study all the pieces before completing the puzzle unaided. He is probably the more academic and methodical of the twins. And Melly, the more initiative and artistic, they've changed a little now, of course. Sean has grown in confidence. The Jerry genes coming to the fore, and his obsession needs water has receded. And Melly has lost her mad edge, much to my relief, although she's still adventurous. She has also grown into the most loving, sensitive, and caring 6-year-old I know, and they remain the best of friends. Well, let's see where I'm at here. Has anyone fell asleep snoring? So it's Amelie, Amelie, Lizzo. Hang on. Lizzo saying, hang on, Amelie, Amelia. Hang on, let's see. Oh, Amelie. So it's Amelie. Loving this, Maggie. Are you really, Pink? Because I feel like I'm boring everyone to death. So what is it? So I can get it again when it comes up. Amelie. Is that right? Amelie. Doesn't seem right. Amelie. I've heard her say it as well. Oh God, where's it gone? Amelie. Amelie. Is it Amelie? Amelie. Amelie or Amelie. Amelie. Like Emily, but Amelie. Oh my God, shall I just say Amelie? Is that right? Is that right? Said I was only reading 2 pages. Oh my God, 3 minutes past 10. I'll go till quarter past 10. I'm trying to get to the when they went on holiday because that's when it all starts, isn't it? Oh God, it's not far. So I'm gonna read these few pages and then the next time tomorrow we'll go on from there. Amelie, okay, Liz, thanks. So Madeline has always been confident and independent, like Shy and Jerry Shy, and Madeline are not words you would really associate with one another. At 3, she was incredibly bright and extremely perceptive. As a mother, I would say that, but for many more objective observers than I commented on, she was always very aware of her surroundings, just as she had been as a baby. Entering a room full of people, she wouldn't just rush in obliviously as toddlers tend to do and make a beeline for me or Jerry. Instead, she would be weighing up just what was going on, apparently, and analysing everything and everyone before asking intelligent and sometimes very pointed questions. Madeline loved Harry Potter. I remember her going out into the hall one afternoon at our house in Quenborough and the knocking on the living room door saying, "Hello, come in," I called. In she came, smiling but looking anxious and preoccupied. She tilted her head towards her shoulder and whispered, "Mummy, Harry Potter's next to me." "Oh, hello, Harry. How nice to see you. Come in and join us for a cup of tea." A few minutes later, she went out again and returned with Hermione, and so it went on until I was welcomed into our living room. Ron, Weasley, Professor Dumbledore, and Professor McGonagall. Madeline was brilliant at role play, and I loved these games too. Even if whenever we played Mummy and Baby, I was always the baby. Jerry and I didn't like the children to have too much in the way of sweets or chocolate when they were little. Auntie Nora used to tease me because I'd give Madeline a rich tea biscuit as a treat. Call that a treat? Big wow! I swear Madeline can pick up and rustle a biscuit or sweetie wrapper at 500 yards. Grandad Brian is well known for being very partial to a chocolate biscuit. I don't think he could manage a cup of tea or coffee without one. There have always been many occasions when we found him hiding behind a cupboard door, shoving a few biscuits into his mouth. But at the faintest fluttering sound coming from my dad's direction, Madeline, the treat detective, would be on to him. What have you got there, Grandad? Once he'd stop laughing at her grave, suspicious expression, he'd be obliged to share his booty. It was on New Year's Eve Day, 2007, that the idea of a spring holiday in Portugal was first raised. Fiona and David Payne, who had come with their children Lily and Scarlett to spend the day with us, were planning a week's break in Mark Warner Resort in the Algarve, probably with two other couples and their families, and they asked us if we'd like to join them. We'd been away with Fiona and David on several occasions, and we'd always enjoyed ourselves. They favoured the same kind of holiday we did. We'd never been interested in swanky hotels, preferring a reputable resort with good sports facilities, and since the arrival of the children, plenty for them to do too. Jenny and I took the kids everywhere. In fact, I'd only ever been apart from them for one night, so they were used to travelling. They had been to lots of family trips to Glasgow, Liverpool, Stratford, Skipton, Crieff, Donegal, Guernsey, Spain, and they loved mini holidays, as we call them, to visit friends and family. The other couples penciled in for this trip were Russell O'Brien and Jane Tanner, and Matt and Rachel Oakfields. Russell and Matt were also doctors. Jane, a marketing manager, was taking a break from work to be a full-time mum for a while. Rachel, a lawyer by profession, was working in recruitment. Although they were all originally friends of David and Fiona's, we knew them quite well too. In fact, Jerry had worked in the past with both Russell and Matt, so we had no concerns about whether we'd all get along. I'd never been to Portugal, although Jerry had been there on a couple of golfing trips a few years before. From people who had taken holidays in the Algarve, I gathered that it was quite an upmarket, family-friendly destination. We had never been on a Mark Warner holiday either, but the others had, to Sardinia and Greece. Everybody attracted by the sporting facilities, children's clubs, and activities on offer. I was more reluctant. It wasn't that I didn't fancy the resorts, and it certainly wasn't that I had some kind of premonition, because I didn't. My reservations were more practical. The holiday was quite pricey, and although Madeline, Sean, and Anna Amelie were good travellers, I just wasn't sure that it was worth all the packing and hassle involved in flying three children under the age of 4 to Portugal when there were plenty of alternatives in the UK. We'd had two great breaks to Centre Parks the previous year, and I was sorely tempted to stick with something similar this time. The others all confirmed that they were all up for it, and in the end, I was persuaded by the enthusiasm of Jerry and our friends that it would be fun. At least it would be once we got there. The party would consist of David, Fiona, Lily, who was 2, and Scarlett, nearly 8 year old, Matt and Rachel and their toddler, Grace, Jane and Russell with Ella, who coming up to 4 was almost exactly the same age as Madeline, and Evie, another toddler. The 5 of us and Fia's mum Diane, and all the children except Sean were girls. He was going to be a bit outnumbered, but at least they would keep him in touch with his feminine side. Madeline was so excited about going on a plane and about going on holiday with her buddies. At nursery, she was full of it. When I went to pick her up, the girls who looked after her there would comment, I hear you're going to Portugal, or someone can't wait for their holidays. It was the first in a series of apparently minor decisions I give anything to change now. So, guys, that's it for now. So, the next page is the holiday. Oh God, when it all goes wrong, isn't it heartbreaking? Well, I hope that some of yous, learned something that yous hadn't heard before, or yous found it interesting, and you want to carry on to read the next bit. Oh, pink, I'm dry as a bone. I'm gone. I mean, there's probably only 6 inch in the ball left. I think that there mightn't even be six. I think there's only, oh, let's see, who's here? Is it only you and Liz? Think is it only you and Liz over here? After I phone, I won't be able to talk tomorrow. Oh, I'm glad you thought it was interesting. I haven't read this, you see. Obviously, we know the story so far, don't we? But sometimes if you go back from the beginning, um, then it just opens up stuff that you know now. Do you know what I mean? But you start thinking, oh, is it enough for the kids? And I mean, honestly, downstairs and could see the apartment the rest of her days, and it must be torturing because I've had so many mixed feelings about this, and I don't know what you think. What do you think? Oh my God, I got knocked off. Oh, can you hear me? I'm sure I've just been knocked off the Wi-Fi. I can hear Alec up in that loft is where I start screaming again. Guys, can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me, that's good. Do you know what, Liz? This is the way I think on and off. I think we have all, no, these kids don't come with a handbook on how to be a parent and stuff like that. And I just think, I don't think, I mean, especially now reading that they've done anything. But then I think, because the doctors, did they give the kids something to make them sleep while they were out having a meal over the roads, be it only over the road, but still, people can get in the back as they did. They got through the winter or whatever. And I'm thinking, because that Capita dog, whatever they're called, didn't they, started barking and said that there'd been a body, and they found blood behind the tile behind the couch. So then there's the theory of, was she groggy because they'd given her something? Did she fall and bang her head and was instantly killed? Oh, I hate even saying it. It makes me feel sick to think if they're in absolute turmoil and me saying that. I just don't know. I feel they haven't had any part in it. I do feel like that, but I've said that about the babysitting service, Lizzo, but you know what she said? Because she was literally down there and they were there and she could see and they were going in taking turns apiece, that she just thought they were sound asleep in bed. I couldn't have done it, Liz. I couldn't have done it. I think she's going to live with the biggest mistake of her life. She is. That child's gone and she has got to live with this for the rest of her life. And can you imagine the pain? Can you imagine the pain? I know. I listen. I could. If that had been any of us, we'd have been in jail now. I think because they were doctors, it was looked at differently. No, you don't. You don't. I could never take my eyes off my child for a minute. I'd be terrified. There's no way. Do you know the truth is, when I first went on holiday, and he was 3 when we first went on our first holiday, and it was to a caravan park, and it was oh, what's it called, in Yorkshire? What is it, Liz? Um, it's got a big fairground. Oh my God, what's it called? Well, we went there, so he had his own room. Like, we made his own room and that for him. And then I said, "Oh, there's no chance. I thought someone's going to get through the window and take him." Alec was like, "Oh my God," because I was overboard. I was overboard. I was terrified I was going to lose him because I've been through so much to have him. And when I was reading that with her, you know what I mean? I thought, oh my God, I could feel what she was going through. And I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. He didn't even sleep in the bed in the other room once. He was in with me. There's no chance he was sleeping on his own. I couldn't. I was terrified. Flamingo Land. That's it. Flamingo Land. Yeah, we went there when he was 3. It was the best ever. The weather was fantastic. And the fairgrounds and everything. We loved it. We had a ball. But I couldn't let him sleep on his own in the room. Because who was that little girl that went missing on a caravan holiday? Do you remember? They took. Oh my God! It was the what was it? Didn't he know her? He knew her. He was a friend of the family. Oh, isn't it Sarah Payne? Have you read Sarah Payne book? No, I haven't. I haven't, Pink. It's took me how many years to read Madeline McCann? Done in 2011. But I know the story of Sarah Payne. But yeah, I'd love to do that one, to be honest. When I've done this, if we're still interested. So listen, if you've got any suggestions with me, or I could do anything better, or you want me to do anything different, tell me so I can make a better experience for you next time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I mean. But they were all drinking wine and everything, weren't they? They wanted to get their kids in bed, Liz, and they wanted to be free to have their meals and their wine. That's what I mean. So they just give the kids their little dinner and then throw them to bed. Because it was early, wasn't it? 6:30. Oh, because normally you see the kids in the prams. Mine was asleep in the pram and we'd be walking around looking at the nice places and then he'd be snoring. We'd have him wrapped in a blanket and then obviously you get him all tucked in into bed and whatever. You always had them asleep in the pram. You never had left them in. Exactly, yeah. Yeah. It's a sad thing. It is a sad thing. But what do you think? Do you think they had anything to do with it? I don't. I don't. But then I've had moments in time where I think, hang on a minute, and because of things I've seen, but I also know how theories go and speculation and how people can get things so wrong. And what do you think? Oh, thanks, Pink. Thanks, love. Oh, thanks for sticking around. Our lunch lady's here as well. So there's Lizzo, Pink, and lunch. Oh, your 3 Studios stays around with me. Oh, I think I'm getting a cold. The little baby was in before. She's 3, the little next door neighbour. And they're all full of it next door. All full of it. So me and Al will probably be full of it. That that's it. That's what it was with me, Pink. The dogs is what brought out with me. And blood, wasn't the blood in the boot of the car that they hired? I know, Liz, I just don't want to believe it. It's just horrible. It really is. It's just so sad. There's just so many things. Oh, thank you, Maggie. You are a jewel. Your reading makes the story more interesting, and I can't wait to hear more. Seriously, this is brilliant in my best English voice. I couldn't say the big words though, Lainey. It was 1 minute, it was Amelia, then it was Emily, then it was Emily. I didn't know what to say. Thank God these all know what I'm like. I'm dreading it getting to the Spanish bit because I'm not going to be able to pronounce these words. I'm just going to have to make them up. I'm going to have to make them up. No, I know it's terrible, lunch lady. I just, I don't think in my heart that they've done anything to their baby. Do you know what I mean? Is that coming from someone who, like yourselves, who you just couldn't even bear to think about someone eating your own? You know, or you even, I mean, let's be honest, if I, say for instance, give my son Calpol, that's what we call it here, it brings the temperature down, and the next thing we go and check on them and you're shaking them and they're not, you can sense something's not right. The first thing you're going to do is scream the place down, phone an ambulance, and if someone's got a car, to throw the baby in the car fast and get him to a hospital. I mean, isn't that what normal people do? Emily Pink, is that right? Emily. I can't bear the thought that someone who fought so hard to have a baby would then easy. That's what I mean. I don't think she has. I don't think she has. I don't think she has. I really don't. I really don't. But one of my mates said to me, "You into the McCann case?" And I said, "Oh God, I have watched loads of it." Like she went, "Just watch this and tell me what you think after watching it." And it's a few of them, and it does make you start thinking. Does make you start thinking who's involved, how they're involved, how they know them, all the jigs. Oh, it's not. I wouldn't even. I couldn't tell you now. Where it's something on YouTube. I'd have to ask her see if she remembers because it was a couple of years ago. Very interesting, and you're all sitting there going and stuff like that. You know what I mean? In disbelief as is this really true? Well, at least tomorrow, right? Story time tomorrow. You can get ready, get your cup of tea, get some munchies, sit down, throw your feet up, throw your headphones in, and lie back or something. Or even if you just lie back with your eyes shut. And because I love that, you know, when you put something on to listen when you go to bed at night. But then when them adverts come through and you're like, oh, and you're just closing your eyes and you just feel yourself going off. And you've got to press skip. Does my head in. Does my head in. I'm side eyeing the parents. Are you, Lean? Are you? See what I mean? When I watched that, I was side eyeing them. I was side eyeing them. Fucking telling you I was. And then I felt ashamed. And then I felt ashamed of myself. I did. Oh, do you know my eyes are all blurred? I'm having to move this phone back 3 weeks. I've got 250 on, right? I think I need fucking 350. My eyes are going all funny. Is that because I've been reading, do you think? I did for a long time, but I don't know, Maggie. I do believe they got preferential treatment. I do think. Because if that had been any normal family, they'd have been up in the court and there'd have been uproar. Uproar. Yeah, exactly, Lisa. It's true. I do believe that. I swear by that. That would have been anyone else. They would have gone to jail for neglect and God knows what. Oh, I think I'm getting a little cold. Hey, it was lovely today, Lisa. Pink, what was it like where you are? It was lovely and warm, dead sunny. I was whizzing around everywhere. Child endangerment. Yeah. Can't help it regardless. They let their children down, and the twins should have been tested for substance to see if they had sedatives in their systems. Well, apparently, when they went in, when it found Madeline had gone, and they went in, the police and that, like, for all the noise that was going on in there, the twins didn't wake up. So that's a bit of a red flag, isn't it? I mean, normally kids that young will wake up, you're always going, shh, keep it down or something, they've just gone to sleep or whatever. But apparently the twins didn't stay. And the dog was barking at the wardrobe, wasn't it, Pink? Barking at the wardrobe. Oh God. And was the blood in the boots? Yeah, I've watched a few of them. Did you watch the James Bulger one? Oh, yeah, it's been lovely, but I've had my head in the notebooks on this Temujin. How do I say that? Is it Temujin? Because don't want to say that wrong. Temujin or Temujin? They're terrible at pronouncing words. Oh, I'm made up. I didn't know I'd been reading that long. We're only going on for an hour. Right, Maggie, so Madeline was given sedatives too, and the kids should have been taken out of their care. Well, if this is the case, this is the thing, Lainey, because they were doctors, they got away with that. If it had been the likes of us, we'd have lost our children. Social services would have removed them kids straight away. Straight away. She did say, didn't she, Lizzo, that the kids had. Did she say she gave the kids or did she? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I can't wait to read this book to find out what's next. Because this is it now. They're there now. Oh, great fan. I'm made up. I'm made up. Trying to bone. Couldn't drink the tap in the minute. Oh God, my chest feels a bit. Oh, I hate that. This is how I now start doing that stupid coughing. They done it the other night. I said to Alec, oh, where's the asthma kicking off? But it's going round everywhere, isn't it? Hiya, Tails. You okay, love? Oh God, they've all got off. There was our saying here. He's run. Who else was in here? Can't remember. I know the Godfather was. Um, I'm just reading through the chat now because I didn't see. Obviously, I didn't see the chat with reading. There's loads not here anyway, is it? Because it's different times for them now, isn't it? Because we're normally on, aren't we, of a morning? Well, the UK morning, Leanie's early hours. Liz, I hope you aren't getting it, Maggie. I've been poorly for over a week now. Chest is really bad. Oh, have you, Liz? Oh, I didn't know that, girl. Didn't know that. Oh, it is horrible. This is the thing with me. As soon as I get a cold, it goes straight to my chest. Are you asthmatic? It goes straight to yours. That's why I go to everyone. Don't bother coming near me with a cold. But what happened? Little baby Penelope next door is 3 today, and we had a present wrapped up, and I wanted to wait for Alex to come home from work because she had to lie to some, and I wanted him to be there to give her presents. So we waited till he come in, had his tea, and then we went and knocked, and she was all made up, but they're all time with it. I went, oh, and the baby run in here, she was sneezing. So I went, looked at Alec, I went, oh God, sneezing everywhere. So who knows? Who knows? Scared it could just be one of them things. Maybe because I've been reading for about 5 hours.
Oh,
Was you listening to me in the gym? I just said good work, Maggie, and so
go ahead, Max.
go ahead, Max. I know that was bleeding blue on my neck. Yeah, I'm starting to cough, but I did the other night, didn't I?
Yeah.
Remember I said to you, oh, that stupid cough. Oh, I know.
How long
Little
have you been
baby
reading that for?
Penelope. I've been reading it since you went out. I didn't realise I've been reading it so long. Oh, but the people
Remember what
said,
you're up to?
oh,
Do you remember what you're up to?
yeah, I'm up to the holiday now. I'm up to the final pass. Because I was just going to read for the holiday and I thought, no, you know what? I suppose it's best to read it all. Got over how they met, what they've been through, and you know how it all began. But oh little Maddie, how old was she be now? When was that? 2007 was it? God. Hey up Alec, Lizzo said.
I hope so.
How the bushwhacker pink said.
Bushfire.
The bushwhacker, that's hysterical. That
Well,
day was
so
funny, wasn't it?
I whacked the bush on the weekend, didn't I?
Oh
Whacked
yeah,
the
he
bush.
whacked the bushes at the weekend in the garden. Is that baby Chow same age as baby Chow? Oh, go away, Lily, 21. Oh my God. Oh, do you think they'll ever find her remains?
I don't reckon she's dead.
Oh, don't you?
No. I reckon what they've
That
done.
Peter's supposed to have got her.
I
He's a
reckon.
visitor in prison.
I reckon what's happened is she's been fucking nabbed. She's been brought up as a completely different kid, and she's got no fucking idea. Everything's been washed out of her fucking mind, and she's been brought up as someone fucking else.
She did
I
that.
reckon.
That's there's honey.
So,
There's Laney saying little fun.
something will come about in the future. How many years? I don't know. It'll be like a fucking DNA thing will come about, and it'll be like, who the fuck's it? Who are you?
Alec gets it wrong, by the way, guys.
Damn
We
you.
when we're watching telly, he goes, "Yo,
Mad,
see him? That's the murderer." Never is. Me and him, I go, it's him, I know it's him. And the next thing I go, oh, hang on a minute, no, it's him. Oh, it's him. Oh, it's definitely him. We get it wrong. Maybe, well, that's what I thought at first, that the gypsies took her. Because they loved the blonde-haired little babies. Did you remember him? Ben Needham? He went missing in, was it called Fu? Or Cos? Cos, wasn't it? Oh, never found him, did they? Never found him. How the hell can you turn your head? Mind you, it only takes a second. Only takes a second. Oh, God forbid, I tell you. I go to my son now. You need to watch that internet, keep your eyes out for any paedophiles grooming these children online. And he goes, Mum. And I go, no. I go, you watch because you don't know if you're talking to paedophiles. And he goes, I'm 22. And I go, but still, I always tell him to look out, always. And after hearing that story of the lad who was tech up kid, online gaming, and this lad befriended him, he was a lot older than him, and then murdered him. Oh my God, I go, listen, don't you go meet anyone offline, because of this, of that, and the other. Oh, I've got his life persecuted. Yeah, yeah. She's moved. Is this Ben Needham's mum? She's moved now abroad, hasn't she? She wants to be nearer to him. Oh God, terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So what are you doing for the rest of the night, girls? I'm going up now to get to bed 25 to 11. My God, that's late for me. I'll be able, no, tomorrow I'll have a hangover like I've been out all night. I'm telling you, I will. How are you, Lee? You any better, girl? Thanks for coming in. I didn't think you'd make it, to be honest with you. I didn't think you'd make it. Oh, they took their eyes off him for a few minutes and he was gone from the jar. Oh my God. You do more research into the. Well, how do you say his name? Tell me, break it up for me. Cost 21 months old, 1991. Yeah, cost. I remember seeing his little face. She's never give up the campaign. I've had to see loads of it when I used to be on Facebook. I used to see loads of it popping up all the time, and my heart used to break. I used to think, oh my God, what must it feel like? What must it feel like? You shared some links, thanks Liz. The problem is my brain is not absorbing anything. I read all this case when they told me about it. I went and read about it. I couldn't get over it, and I thought, "Hi, how you doing, Truth Seeker? I'm muted. Oh, have I muted? Do you mean I'm muted, Liz? Oh, you can hear me now. Do you know what it is? I've got these buds in and I must have pressed the button on my ear. Hi, Truth Seeker, how are you, love? I'm back now, thank God. I got knocked out before, didn't I? I think Alec was messing with the internet. It's in that loft. So he must be. What I might do is, mind you, never will do that while I'm going to sleep because if I put something on like that when I'm going to sleep, I'm not definitely not going to absorb it, Liz. So we'll try and get a bit in tomorrow and have a read. Guess I'm going to go now. Want to get washed and get ready to get into bed. Thanks so much for coming in and for being here for me. Thanks a lot. Oh, shoot, Seeker, listen, we're getting off now, love. I've been on a couple of hours now. Sorry, love. Good night, y'all. Thanks for coming. Maggie, you're wonderful. Thank you for this. Have a great day, evening. You too, Leanie. Have a good night. I hope you have a good sleep tonight. I do, love. And I'll speak to you in the morning. Take it easy, Leanie. Love ya. Thanks, ladies. Thanks, lunch lady. Thanks, Lido. Thanks, Pink, for all coming in and being with me and staying. So, probably be tomorrow night. Might be a bit earlier. Oh wait, no, it might be the same time. I'll put the thumbnail up, but you know me, it's probably going to be 5 minutes before. But if I can, I'll do it a lot earlier. And thanks very much for coming in. Thanks, guys. And I'll speak to you all soon. Good night and God bless. Thanks a lot. Good night.